They didn't want to have those, they didn't want to see those structures.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was.
Yes.
Might be. Oh, and then, the other thing is California's 1,200 square feet rather than 800.
Oh, Applejack.
The ODF public.
And then also, we have the benefit.
And it's all
here.
lower.
Yeah, all
That's right.
lowercase,
of
Applejack.
our neighbors.
No problem.
See, I was totally unaware of
These
those.
things, Citizens has had an ADU ordinance for 20 years. None of these things have happened. None of the sky didn't fall, neighborhoods
and I,
didn't change.
Chairman, you can start.
Same thing for Irvington.
I spent a lot
I
of
think
time.
we're going to start the meeting.
Okay, sorry.
Good evening, all. Welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry on April 7, 2002. 22, well, 22. We had 7 items on our original agenda. I've been advised that 2 of our items have been removed. Item number 5, 86 Main Street, and item number 7, 24 Eldridge Place. The first item on our agenda tonight is 145 Judson Avenue, public hearing for proposed exterior alterations to existing home. First, I would like to move to the board that we open the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? So 145 Judson Avenue, please.
I'm going to recuse myself. For this. I'm going to recuse myself again for this one.
Okay.
We'll call you.
I'll be right here.
Am I in the right place?
Yes.
Dan Sherman for the Ona Fry Chicks at 145 Judson Avenue. Since the planning board meeting before, we appeared at the Architects Review Board. And that was successful. They only asked that we reduce our 36-inch wall to 30 inches. I think to avoid the need for a railing on it or something, which was easy. So that's it. So we're here for small alterations to the exterior landscape. We're widening the driveway a little bit so that it aligns better to the garage doors. And adding a sidewalk because they come in the driveway and need to come onto the porch. So we added a bluestone sidewalk. And in order to level the backyard a little bit, just adding a little retaining wall in the back, which matches the other 2 walls. That's it. Any kind of questions?
I don't have any comments.
I don't know. Any question, Anthony? Oliver? I know you've had
Yes.
some, you've had some comments. Have your comments been satisfactorily responded to?
We just had one remaining comment. There was just a discrepancy in the stormwater calculation, just a minor correction to be made.
Okay, so,
I can still do that, right?
no,
Yes.
okay. Any action we might take is subject to, as it would say in the resolution, resolving any outstanding issues on comments. Does the board have any questions or comments? Anyone in the audience have any questions on this application?
Have to open the public hearing, I guess, right? Or is it a
Open and close the
continuation?
public hearing or anything
Yeah,
like
I
that.
guess,
Do we have to do that?
yeah, we have to open.
I say we open the public hearing. I mean, I
Second.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody have anything to say?
No.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Aye. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, wait a minute.
Wait just a
You can still talk.
And will.
Well, if there's no more,
Rob might have something, right, Rob?
He was.
Oh,
I was
he's-
teasing. You know, it's gotten bad when people don't know when you're kidding.
Sorry,
That's
okay. I think it looks great.
good. Well, if that's the case, we do have a motion available for the evening. And if I may, I will make the motion. Background where the applicant, Jacob Anfrichek, is seeking site approval for to widen an existing driveway, add a section of sidewalk, add 3-foot stone retaining wall and regrade the rear yard in a 1-family residential dwelling. Whereas the project will result in construction or expansion of minor accessory residential structures in a classified under State Environmental Review Act, implementing regulations as type 2. Whereas this application will meet zoning requirements, whereas the public planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on April 7 and was concluded on April 7, during which all wishing to be heard were given an opportunity. Whereas the planning board carefully examined and considered the materials submitted by the applicant, including the site plan update, coastal assessment form, and sort of environmental assessment. The planning board also reviewed and examined letters, reports, memorandum from the board's consultants. Whereas taking the above into account, the planning board is now deliberating in public on the applicant's request for approval of the project. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the project site and the general vicinity and reviewed the application in accordance with the land. Whereas the planning board considered, among other things, traffic access, walkways, circulation, parking, stormwater, screening, lighting, and other things. And according to our village attorney, I can go toward the end. I would like to make the motion that we approve this. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 on our agenda, 110, 150 Draper Avenue, public hearing for proposed stabilization of eroded bank. This is clearly one of the more interesting situations that we have encountered in many years, and I'm anxious to see what steps have been taken.
Good evening, Azure D. Slicher from Race Coastal Engineering. I am the applicant's agent and engineer of record for this project. Last month, we were before you virtually, but I definitely wanted to make the trip tonight to implore you, the planning board, members of the planning board, to acknowledge that this is an emergency situation, that we've been somewhat delayed for the past several months while we tweak the plans to show sedimentation and erosion control measures and things of that nature. So at the last meeting, it was requested of us to try and get a couple of locations along the sanitary sewer line. We've done that in the most recent submission. We've estimated where we think it goes in areas where it's not visible or where it cannot be safely accessed to do any further survey. We've added additional sedimentation and erosion control measures per AI engineer's request. We've added a planting buffer of 10 feet at the top of the slope in accordance with the landscape architect's request. The only thing that we have not worked out is the details of that planting plan. We've received these comments over the past 3 days, and we believe we've done our best to try and prepare a comprehensive set of plans to address an emergency that quite honestly should have been addressed months ago. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I would just ask that the planning board attempt to make a resolution tonight so that we can move this ball forward and secure a very unsafe situation. And if you'd like to hear from some of the residents who live there, they'd be happy to share their concerns.
Good, thank you. This is a public hearing, and I would like to move, we open the public hearing. There's a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting to read material that we're getting and see the change in depth and thinking about it and some changes in what's going on. And also the other entities that you're having to work with. And the village has concerns, obviously. So they are like someone coming also before the board, except we work for them. So
I guess I just had a question for the building department. There's some, I was reading about something about, burying or inspecting the sewer pipe.
That's what we're concerned about.
Is that something that if we pass a resolution, we could just put that in as, to the satisfaction of the village engineer?
Yeah, and Anthony has looked at that already.
Yeah, so that's not an obstacle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was our intent to just,
Okay.
when they do the work, that we have village personnel out there. And we wanted that on the plan noted.
Okay.
And I have a similar issue with the landscape. Is it possible for us to, for the approval to be contingent on the submission and approval of the landscape plan? So that we can approve, because I'm also about moving forward, but the landscape is an issue and sounds like we don't have all the information yet.
Right, so right now I have the current draft resolution before this board says the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village landscape architect comments raised in the March 23rd, 2022 landscape report submitted to the board. If you want something more specific to say that the landscape, the applicant needs to provide a landscape plan and that needs to be reviewed and approved by the landscape architect, I can change that if you prefer.
Yeah, I think it should be.
Okay.
It's not a lot of landscape, is it? I mean, it's just
No,
that
but-
little stretch there.
Right, but did you read her report? Did you read the landscape architect's report?
I didn't,
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that can be done and
Okay.
it should be done. It didn't seem excessive.
Okay.
Certain kinds of plantings that probably will work in the rocks and so on. So-
Gotcha. Okay.
So I would be in, for me, that was the thing that I was hung up on, but if there's a way for the approval to be made with that as a condition,
I can read this.
then I would be for it.
Please.
And we just have to put in the contingent of
Yeah.
village and engineer and the landscape. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have the village engineer and I have a reference to the March 31st, 2022 memorandum. And then I also have a reference to my memorandum because there was, besides the landscaping plan, I also noted that all permits needed to be obtained by the Army Corps of Engineers. So that would be a condition as well.
Is there anyone else in the audience, either here or online? Neighbors? I know that the people living in the 150 Draper obviously have concerns that they've expressed to us. Please would speak to the
State your name.
microphone.
Yeah, I can't hear you guys either, so
Oh.
we're at a disadvantage here. Yeah, I'm president of the board of 110, 150 Draper. And I have been for, 10 years. I've also been on the board for about 24.
State your name.
My name is Jean Greenberg. So I've had a long history, with this property. And it is, several times I've heard people mention, oh, this is an interesting problem. It's interesting, but to us, it's not interesting. It's very frightening. So when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, this is very interesting because, we're complicated by the fact that the part of the Wickers Creek runs through our property, always has. And we have been faithful stewards of that creek, which we're supposed to be. Every year, we have a voluntary clean up the creek thing that our building does. We've always taken very good care of it. We take very good care of our property in the back. And everything was fine until the storm, Ida, and we woke up and half of our lawn had dropped down into the creek. Over the years, if you're familiar with the property, the drop from the Croton Aqueduct is very, very steep. It goes straight down. And when we have weather events, what happens is the water all goes down there, drains into the creek, which goes through our property. And with the change in the weather or whatever the heck it is, the creek has flooded its banks, changed direction. And with each storm, more and more of our property is going down into the creek. Our parking lot is compromised. If you look at the edge of our parking lot now, there's a sheer drop. It's very frightening. And we're watching this happen on a daily basis. And all I can say is from the day that the damage started, I tried to get in touch with the mayor, with the trustees, with all the board to say, come out here and look at this. We called the DPW. We said, oh, look at what are these funny little things all along the creek that were never there before. They were the manhole covers. for the sewer line. We call it, it was a sewer line in trouble. They came out, no, it's old stuff. And then the next thing they had 2 cement trucks coming there to our property and they dumped all the cement down there. It's been a nightmare. And this happened fairly shortly after the disaster in Miami where that whole building collapsed. So of course, that was the first thing that our residents thought of. Are we safe? We're watching bits of our property fall down there on a daily basis. It's very frightening. So all we want is the permission to get started because imagine how you would feel if it was your house, your property, and woke up and half of your yard was down there. Multiply that by 84 families and try to understand where we're coming from. We're frightened and we're watching the other side where the school property is and the drop is sheer down. If I had kids still in school, I wouldn't want them to go anywhere near there. They haven't even put up a fence. So there's so much danger and it's just, it has to be addressed. So that's all I can say, and the property has gotten worse. I know someone said, oh yeah, I was out there in November. In 5 months, the damage is much, much worse. And I even went to the expense of getting someone with a drone to take overhead pictures so I could show the trustees, but I can't do any more. So we're doing our part. We're trying to follow every step, every rule. We want to work with you, but we want to secure our property. And we don't want anybody to get hurt. And it's dangerous. This is sheer drop, straight down 10 feet, right off our parking lot. I wish you guys would come down here. It is very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting, but it's not interesting when you're watching it, from your bedroom window.
That's true.
That's all I want to say. So I just hope that you guys will let us get started before it gets even worse.
Thank you, Jean.
Okay?
Is that our intent?
Yeah.
That's where we were kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more we can do in terms of a resolution to make this thing any better. I think
You understand that how.
we
urgent it is.
understand what the issues are. And so, yes,
Okay.
if you would.
So I'll read this resolution. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board Resolution granting site plan approval 110, 150 Draper Lane. Whereas 110, 150 Draper Owners Corp. seeking the site plan approval to stabilize an eroded bank along Wookers Creek at a multifamily residential dwelling. Section and block. Whereas the project is classified under the SECRA implementing regulations as unlisted action. Whereas pursuant to section 239 LM and N of the New York State General Municipal Law, Village Board referred the application materials to the Westchester County Department of Planning for their notification, whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing April 7th, 2022. It was concluded on April 7th, 2022, during which all of those wishing to be heard were given opportunity to be heard, whereas the planning board carefully examined and considered the materials submitted by the applicant in support of the project, including site plan, application, site plans by Race Coastal Engineering, coastal assessment form, short environmental assessment form. Whereas the planning board also reviewed and examined letters, reports, and memorandum from the board's consultants and the planning board recommendation, and considered the testimony and comments obtained during the public hearing. Whereas while taking the above mentioned into account, the planning board has not now deliberated in public on the applicant's requests for approval of the project. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the project site, it's reviewed the general vicinity, whereas the planning board considered, among other things, traffic access, walkways, circulation, parking, etc. Whereas planning board has now concluded its review of the applicant's proposal and finds the applicant has satisfactorily addressed the criteria for granting approval in section 352D of the village code. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted subject to the following conditions.
I'm just going to read the new revised
Okay.
conditions, which are going to be the applicant must address the full satisfaction of the village engineer, all outstanding stormwater, stormwater maintenance agreement and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board, including the village engineer's March 31st, 2022 memorandum. The applicant must obtain all required permits and approvals by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and the applicant must provide a landscape plan for review and approval by the landscape architect.
And do I read all the appro?
No, I think
No,
you're,
okay.
then you can just vote, yeah.
So force and effect, no portion of any approval of the planning board shall take effect until all the conditions are met. Final site plan is signed by the planning board chair. Final site plan signed by the planning board has been filed with the land use office. Landscape, you read that and,
Yeah, I think you can just vote now.
okay. So make a motion to approve.
Okay, I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, I know that motion doesn't solve your problem, but you know, we support, we support the needs that you have because they're really part of the village needs too. I mean, it's,
Absolutely,
So-
we're the heart of the village.
Yes.
We're located.
yes,
We're really, I feel like we're the leading part of the
Yeah.
village. Everything goes from there.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Thank you.
I wanted to see that.
I mean,
I would just note for the record.
it's been a very interesting event in the life of the village, but I'm sorry that you had to be a principal of
It's
the,
very complicated. With all the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA and you guys.
Metro North.
step by step.
Yeah,
Good.
step by step.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to note for the record that we'll take that the public hearing was closed on
Yes.
on the same vote.
Yes, it was.
Item number 3 on our agenda,
Yes.
on our agenda, 50 Judson Avenue, public hearing for proposed additions to existing home.
Steve Seacon is on Zoom. I'm promoting him right now.
Okay,
This is 50.
Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Last month, we were before you to introduce you to the project. I'm the architect working with the Newman family. And in the meantime, we've received zoning approval and architectural review board approval. We've answered and responded to the consulting engineer's comments. And we've updated the drawings. They were bubbled, addressing their concerns. And we also had previously submitted 4 letters of support from adjacent neighbors. We're here, happy to share my screen with you. But I figure you're probably well acquainted with the project by now. And happy to address any concerns or review anything that you might have.
well, as a procedural moment, we need to open the public hearing. I move we do that. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Is there anyone? Well, there's probably nobody here, but is there anyone online that wishes to speak to this from the public?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay, thank you.
Are we close a public hearing? That was fast.
We move that we close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Trustee Judson, I don't know.
So I'm gonna,
You're the reader?
Do you have it?
I have it.
Okay, you have it.
All
Good.
right. Resolution for the Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board granting site plan approval for 50 Judson Avenue. Whereas Jonathan Newman and Michelle Perillo, the applicants, are seeking site plan approval for a first floor addition, a rear deck addition, interior alterations, driveway widening, and drainage alterations at a one-family residential dwelling. The property is located at 50 Judson Avenue. Whereas the project will result in the construction or expansion of a single-family residence on an approved lot and is classified under the SECRA implementing regulations as a type 2 action. Whereas this application received an area variance of 9 feet 3 inches from the minimum required combined side yard setback and 1 foot 3 inches for the one side yard setback of table B1. at the zoning board of appeals meeting of February 9th, 2022, whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on April 7th, 2022, and it was concluded on April 7th, 2022, during which all those who wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and to provide written comments. And whereas the planning board carefully examined and considered the materials submitted by the applicant in support of the project, including as follows. There's a list of items. Whereas the planning board also reviewed and examined letters, reports, memorandum from the board's consultants and the planning board's recommendation, considered the testimony and comments obtained during the public hearing process. And whereas while taking the above mentioned into account, the planning board has now deliberated in public on the applicant's request for approval for the project and planning board determination. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the project site and general vicinity and has reviewed the application in accordance with chapter 300 of the zoning code. Whereas the planning board considered, amongst other things, traffic access, walkways, circulation and parking, stormwater, landscaping and screening, lighting, noise, natural and environmentally sensitive features, and whether the proposed project will exceed the capabilities of existing municipal roads or utility services. And whereas the planning board has now concluded its review of the applicant's proposal and finds the applicant has satisfactorily addressed the criteria for granting approval in accordance with section 300-52D of the village code, including consistency with the village local waterfront revitalization plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based on the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions.
You can go right to the bottom.
Okay. I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep. Item number 4 on our agenda tonight,
39 Riverside Place.
39 Riverside Place, pre-submission conference for proposed renovation of single-family home, including site improvements, drainage, and retaining walls.
Yeah, I like it.
Think maybe after all this time with COVID, I could do this.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, right? Impressive.
Didn't even need an assistant.
There you go.
It's very exciting. Okay. Hi, my name is Greg Sharp. I am representing myself and my family in the renovation of in a single-family home at 39 Riverside Place. This is a very unique property that was originally built and developed in the 60s, and we purchased the home from, oh man, I can't move this thing.
There it is.
Okay, so it's an existing house built in the 60s. It's still within its original format. It has a 2x4 walls, not very well insulated, uninsulated windows. Foundation is cracking, leaning, sort of in pretty bad shape. This house is a perfect candidate for a complete renovation. And my intent is to build a new house on top of the existing location, utilizing parts of the foundation and the utilities as such. skip to the site plan. Okay. The proposed site plan utilizes the existing driveway entrance, and we're maintaining a garage at the front of the property. The existing house does have the front door low access towards the river, and we are extending that. We're keeping the front door in the same location as it currently is on the side of the house, the garage as it is, and we're maintaining the existing rear yard line of the house. This was something that I had worked out with my neighbors. This was their wish, so I had consultations with my neighbors and reviewed with them, and everyone seems to be very excited and on board with what we're doing. And so the house is a two-story house. We do not plan to add a basement, although I would love to add a basement, but we're not going to add a basement. So the entrance is on the side of the house. Oh man. So on the side of the house, you enter into the house. There's a two-car garage at the front, and we're going to create a nice family room off the back to utilize the backyard. And then you're going to go upstairs, and I have 3 bedrooms for myself and my 2 children upstairs. I plan to make the house as green as possible, utilizing the latest environmental construction techniques, and also solar panels on the roof. Hopefully I will be able to get to that. Okay. The house is a modern interpretation of a single family home. It's in scale of the current neighborhood and in scale of the current adjacent houses. This is still the craziest mouse. This is not changed. Okay, this is the side to the rear. This is the side that faces the neighbors. And here we have some renderings of the house. What is not readily available in the renderings is that this house does sit at the end of the block, and it does have spectacular river views, which we can utilize off the side and off of the rear. We can see it, and while we're using the rear yard. So I wish the train wasn't so loud, but we can't have everything. This just shows some other views of the house.
Your new insulation will help with the train a little bit.
Yes, the new windows and the new insulation. Yes. So, but the idea is just to create a nice, I would call this a simple house. I guess that may not be the best adjective to describe it, but a simple house, a simple shape. I'm trying to keep it as pure of a shape as possible, not try to have it be broken up into multiple pieces, but try to have it be like a uniform shape, but then have within that shape various differences of materials and differences of architecture that sort of are within that pure shape that we're trying to create. It's a modern design, but in scale and in keeping with some of the other houses in the neighborhood. So it's not necessarily that much larger than the house is currently, just accommodating just a little bit more space. And we're basically building it mostly within the same footprint. As I said, the current house is in fairly poor condition. So part of our work will be to make sure that the house and the foundation is stabilized and do additional drainage and landscape improvements, as well as add a retaining wall along the back, which is which is this shape that's along the property line. So the current yard ends kind of in line with the house. So this would be a great thing to add this retaining wall. Our adjacent neighbor, I guess to the south of us, has a very large retaining wall securing their whole property. So this is somewhat in the same vein as their retaining wall in order to sort of like maintain and stabilize that hill. Currently, our hill is, it's not as serious as the situation that they just described. It's just gently eroding down the hill. But this retaining wall will hopefully stabilize that and create a nice flat yard that we can still, play a little ball in. So at this time, are there any questions? I did.
How tall will that retaining wall be?
The retaining wall, I believe, will be about 5 to 6 feet tall. So, but I have retained Hudson Engineering. Michael Stein's firm will be working on all the engineering documents for those items.
Do you ever walk down to Fair Lawn and see what's happening to their retaining walls down there?
I have not.
You should take a look at that. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's sort of a lesson in retaining walls.
Listen, I've built some great retaining walls. I know about retaining walls, so.
Be informative.
Good. Okay, I will. I love checking them out. That's for sure.
Are there any specific engineering issues that they should be aware of?
We did do a memo. I'm not sure if the applicant has it. It is on the website. Stormwater calculations weren't completed yet, as you mentioned. Hudson Engineering is going to do that. So we'll look at that when that comes in. But we just pointed out, the wall and the topography that should be detailed enough on the plan to evaluate, locate water and sewer services. I don't think those were shown, and a little more detail on the wall construction, because of that slope there is a concern.
We received some comments and we're working to get all those addressed, and Hudson Engineering is working on the retaining wall and the drainage and various other professional engineering items. I am not doing it myself, so I'm going to have them handle it, and they obviously have they understand what needs to be done and can work directly with the town to make sure all the needs are addressed.
The final structural design of the wall isn't really needed for the planning board site plan, but it will be needed for building permit issuance.
Anthony or Dan, where does the sewer route? Does it route down from there or back to the?
I thought there was sewer in front. I believe I looked it up. There's sewer in.
So it goes out to the center, that circle in Riverside,
and then I believe it goes down to the county trunk line from there.
Okay, so it doesn't try to go back up to
No,
Palisade.
back up the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where the sewer line is, and I know where it leaves my house, but I'm not 100% sure where the sewer line is. I know where my water line is. Everything comes right out to the street. And I'm sure I'll find it when I dig it all up.
That's cool.
Well, I would move, we have a public hearing at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Good.
Great.
Well,
Thank you so much.
good.
So can I go to ARB as well, or do I have to wait?
Go everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Go everywhere. Oh, I love that.
Well, I
Thank you.
have a question.
I like this. I love it. I like the streamlined approach, guys. It's very appreciated.
The existing structure is non-conforming in a number of ways, but this doesn't appear to make it any worse. So did they still have to go to the ZBA?
He already did, and he got his variance
Oh,
for the
great.
ZBA.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. See
Thank you all so much.
next month.
Welcome.
Good luck. Looks nice.
Should be done by August.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, try getting those windows.
Yep. Item 5 on our agenda, 86 Main Street, pre-submission conference for proposed retaining walls, paved terraces, and fencing.
That item has been removed from the agenda.
Removed from the agenda.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Bel Air's the next.
I'm sorry. Yeah, item number 6 on the agenda, 21 Bel Air Drive, pre-submission conference for proposed additions to existing home and repair of retaining wall. Sorry.
Anybody here?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm putting Patty Hill on.
Hi, I'm there. I'm just gonna, Dan can tell me, I'm so sorry, you guys. My kids are screaming in the background. I apologize. Total chaos in here. Let me just, Dan Cantelmo is on. He's our architect who designed all of those. I don't know if you guys see him in the participants possibly.
Yes, I'm promoting him as a panelist right now.
Oh, wonderful. I will mute myself. I'm so sorry about my noise.
Dan, can you hear us?
He's on mute. Let me text him to, there he is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hello, you can hear me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, I couldn't get into it quick enough when Katie joined, but the project is to build a deck behind the home and also repair a tie wooden retaining wall. The site is very steep in the backyard, and they currently have a wall now that is crumbling as we speak. So they want to rebuild that. Because of the severity of the slope, we're doing it as a tiered wall. So to minimize the height of it at the rear. We did receive a variance for the deck because the house property are non-conforming currently. So we got the variance to build the deck where it's being shown with a staircase coming down on the north side. Do we need to share drawings, or do you have drawings with you?
You have them on, you should go through the proposal.
I can share them for you, Dan. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, you guys. I'll mute myself. Sorry, I'm on my work computer, and of course it's like, there is a security issue with you sharing. Hold on one second, I can figure this out though. Apologies.
I'm gonna see if I could share it for you. I'm just gonna pull it up on the website.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it 21?
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's tight over there. I drove by that. It's very tight.
Are you sure?
I mean, this is the
No, it has like a
setback.
million pages.
No, it's non-conforming in this corner of the house.
Yes, I know.
Why the stairs have to be there. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, it's me.
Thank you. Yeah, we see them. I'm sorry about that.
I know
The
it's-
drawings, Jen?
back
Yes,
to
hold
where-
on.
Down to where.
I was trying to make it a
That's
little
Magnolia.
bigger.
It goes down a hill. Yeah. All those mountains.
So go back to the first drawing. The first, yeah, that's proposed. I have a question about why. I mean, I see the house is existing non-conforming on the north side for the setback.
They actually got the variance to enclose that back porch. They were extending the non-conforming. So that's what they got the variance for. The deck is compliant. It's within the setback. It's just the steps that come into the setback and they're allowed to protrude into the setback.
They're like right on the property line. It's a little, wouldn't even want to put them on the other side.
I believe it's the driveway, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the driveway's on that side.
Dan, you could explain.
There's also a tree to the left of the deck, which is not shown on the plan. And we wanted to keep that tree there, so we'd have to take that down in order to get the stairs to work on that side. But you're correct. The reason for the variance was because of what's being shown within the house, which is an existing covered porch and it's just being enclosed.
Well, the board did receive a letter from Mr. Bortz about his property to the north. Did you see that letter? You have a response to that?
I did not see the letter.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't either.
That's 21 Bel Air.
Yeah, it's to the
Oh,
north. Yeah.
sorry.
It's dated January 13.
But he makes a good argument for reconsidering the placement of the stairs, and I actually just look at it.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised that you were not copied on it.
No.
Well, I think it was originally submitted to the zoning board. I think it's part of the record. In the zoning board. It's not shared with us.
The ZBA did require modifications to the overall stairs and the deck from the zoning board of appeals application to now. So I don't know if that letter is referring to the original application site plan before the zoning board of appeals, or if it's referring to the one you're looking at this point.
Well,
He asked for it to be shared again with the planning
Right.
board, this thing.
It's addressed to the members of the zoning board and now the planning board, it says, so.
Well,
It's not clear if it's the same letter or if it's been revised.
yeah, I think that the applicant should, it should be shared with the applicant so they can work it out with their neighbor. I mean, we shouldn't get involved with, too much. If it's the ZBA has allowed it.
Right.
Right.
Get worked out with.
And we had quite a few conversations with the building inspector in that the stairs are allowed by right and do not require a setback.
So they can be right on the property line?
Yes. Well, we're not on it, we're within it. But it's intentional to give them access to that side yard, which exists right now between, their house and an existing fence. And not that it matters now, but we made pretty big concessions based on that neighbor's letter to the zoning board where we changed the application drastically to comply with their requirements.
That's good. Have you shared that with the neighbor?
Oh, yeah, they were at the zoning board meeting.
Yeah.
So the deck also at one point needed a variance and we cut it back to get it off of the setback line and it was in a different location. We changed a lot of things around just to make it comply and have it approved.
Yeah, we did try really hard to give them what they wanted. We changed the plan significantly. Dan's right. Yeah.
Is this the worst site visit? Or?
I think it is.
Yeah, I
I
think,
would think I would like to
Yeah.
look at it. I mean, I drove by there tonight.
yeah, I
but
drove
didn't-
by it too, but it's still, you need to see more
Yeah,
than
I
just
didn't
from the
really get to
straight.
see it.
Yeah.
Just come up with a date.
How about Saturday?
Hopefully you didn't hear my kids screaming then too, so.
I would not be able to do
Um,
it. Well, it depends. No, if it's
Sunday?
early enough and so, no, it depends when.
Yeah, I could do it early, like 9.
So
Commitments. Yeah. This Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah.
He's
I
checking
haven't
his
forgotten.
calendar.
If you do get a chance to go by, I think it would be important to note that the neighbor's house on that side is basically a wall without windows until you get to an entire level above. So when you're at the bottom of those stairs, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that their window sills are probably 14 feet in the air. So, you know, they're way above where this stair is even. They have to go to the window and look down just to see the deck, let alone the stairs, which are.
although the letter from Mr. Bortz
Doesn't indicate that.
doesn't indicate that, indicates that from the living spaces in their house.
It's a very long letter.
So I think that their that their views are gonna be very close to the new deck. that you're building.
Give you 9 o'clock.
So,
Yeah. What Saturday? or
Saturday.
9 o'clock Saturday. I mean, because we don't really understand the levels by looking at the plans, it might be good
Right.
to just over take a look.
You're welcome to come through our house and.
Saturday, okay with you? If
Oh,
we-
absolutely. Sure. You're welcome to do that. You'll see the difference and you'll see where we're trying to put it and everything. Yeah, we're here Saturdays. Just come whenever you like and you're welcome to come through the house and through the side yard and you'll see kind of what we're thinking.
All right, rain or shine?
Rain.
Rain or shine is great. There might be chaos in here, but you're welcome to come whenever you like.
Open the public hearing.
We don't have a,
It's a
yeah,
pre-submission, isn't
You're
it?
gonna might want to schedule a public hearing.
yeah, we have to schedule.
Next
it.
month.
You're welcome to, you're welcome to come to the site visit.
I just wanted to say that I have some questions.
Can that be arranged? Can that be arranged somehow?
Uh-oh.
So are you Mr. Bortz? Oh. Nice to meet you.
Well, I'm just raising this, you technically have all the way till next month. So
Okay.
while you could do the site visit this week with, with the applicant, there's always the possibility over the next few weeks.
Can
If
we
you
do it next
return.
Saturday?
Right.
It would also allow for a proper notice
Yeah, okay, well.
because you are meeting as a
Yeah.
board.
Okay,
So why don't we do it in another?
well, a week from,
another week or
a
so?
week from Saturday, whatever date that is.
16th.
That's Easter Sunday is.
No, that's probably not,
That's Saturday.
I think.
that's probably not.
Thanksgiving is Saturday, yeah.
Saturday's the 16th.
No, around about 2 weeks.
Day before Easter.
Yeah, 2 weeks. It's
The 23rd then?
Sure.
Does that work with you, Mr. Wertz? Okay,
23rd.
so we'll do Saturday, the 23rd.
Great.
At 9 o'clock, you said?
Yep.
Saturday, the 23rd at 9 AM.
Perfect.
Assume brunch will be served.
Yeah, it'll get noticed.
What would you guys like?
Really good bagel and lops.
Come on in. I'm no cook, but I can do bagel and lops.
Are there any concerns with anything else on the site plan that we should be prepared for with the next meeting?
We did do a memo with some minor comments.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I
you have
reviewed
that.
that. And it seems like it all looks good. I know we need a county referral.
That's
Um,
already been done, so you don't have to worry about that. We already submitted that to the county.
Oh, great.
Do you
Um,
have the engineering memo as well?
I do.
Okay, great.
And I read through it and I don't see any issues because I know that the wall complies with the zoning ordinance. We're not adding lighting. I did have a question about landscaping because they were planning on creating lawn and not really adding landscaping. So is that something we can, is it required to add shrubs where they might not want shrubs? That would be my.
I guess it depends after our walkthrough or site visit, if we
Okay.
feel like there's a privacy issue or screening issue that may come up, may not.
Okay.
Very tight over there. Very, very, very
Mm.
tight.
It's funny, the lot on 21 looks like it's sort of parts of the lots of the other. I mean, isn't there a property line down the middle or something? What, in the site plan? Something strange.
From front to back, you mean?
Yeah.
No, it's all one lot. It goes from one street to the other.
No, but in the survey,
Oh,
it has number 24 and number 23, right, as two little half lots right down the middle.
oh, I see what you're saying.
So it looks like the lot's made up of two other smaller lots.
That's funny.
Might have been the original tax lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
For subdivision originally.
Probably was a
I
smaller
was trying to
lot.
figure out how they would make a house, on a
Yeah.
lot that skinny.
People were smaller.
There's a lot of them like that.
Yeah.
And then they split it when they do the subdivision, they make it a
It's funny.
50 by 100.
Yeah, it's an old survey for sure.
It's interesting. The other question I had is, you spell Bel Air with an E at the end or not?
I get that question daily.
Okay.
I've seen it both ways.
Definitely not.
Okay, all right. Did we call for a public hearing in our next meeting? I think we did.
No, did we?
You need a motion on this.
All right, we make a motion to have a public hearing in our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Thank you all.
Okay.
And we will see you on the 23rd.
All right, see you guys on the 23rd.
Okay.
Have a nice night.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good.
Thank you.
Bye, Katie.
Okay, now what do we have left?
That's it.
That's it.
Well, actually, didn't,
No,
No,
oh, we
We're
didn't
talking
want to
about
have a
that.
discussion about the new code change,
Yeah.
the auxiliary dwelling issue.
right. So the accessory, there's a proposal with a good bit of momentum at the Board of Trustees to adopt an accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Sorry. It was originally, as I said in my the sort of covering letter, back when we redid the zoning, it was originally supposed to be part of that. At the time, there was a member of the Board of Trustees who was just not going to budge on that issue. And the mayor at the time, Mayor Kniff, said, let's just table this, get the zoning passed, and we'll revisit it. And 20 years later, or however long it's been, we still don't have an ADU ordinance. We are behind our neighbors and many other communities in Westchester in not having one. The Affordable Housing Task Force, for which I'm the co-chair along with Tracy Barron, we've done a lot of research into the various model accessory dwelling unit ordinances, both around the country and it's more relevant here in Westchester County. And working together with Valerie has been just a great help. We now have the language for a draft resolution. It's not for a draft ordinance. And while we don't adopt it, the Board of Trustees adopts it, we're going to be the ones who are going to be administering it. So the Board of Trustees felt, and of course I agree, since I'm on the planning board, that we should look at it. And if we have any serious issues with it, we should talk about those so that we don't hold up the process. Because the Board of Trustees is anxious to do this, and we don't want to slow it down. I don't know, Valerie, if you want to review, at the end of the day, what it really, there are a handful of issues that it comes down to. And for that worth discussion. I guess Valerie, do you want to go through the 3 or 4 points of contention and how they were resolved at the Board of Trustees? And I know Donna can also speak to it. Donna is also on this Affordable Housing Task Force. And that's been part of all of these discussions. Curious, did you all have a chance to look at the draft, the materials that sent? Okay.
Well, I mean, I can just sort of just broad overview. The ADUs are going to be allowed in both existing buildings as well as new buildings. So the board wanted to allow as much flexibility as possible. The ADUs are not going to require any sort of residency requirement in terms of some ADU laws will require that a property owner owns the house for a number of years prior to any conversion. This is going to allow anybody to convert their houses, you know, as soon as they would like to. And it doesn't matter how long they've lived in that particular the property. Then the other, the ADU law is not going to require any sort of permit renewals or expirations of the permits. The only time that information is going to have to be updated or a permit's going to have to be updated is when there's actually a change of ownership in the house. Other than that, the board was also concerned with not requiring any parking requirements associated with the ADUs. So again, that is now not part of the proposed law. And then I think the last remaining item that's out there is dealing with the owner occupancy, which is the board has expressed to allow for it to be owner occupied, or at least one of the 2 units to be owner occupied. But they have requested us to look into potential exceptions for special circumstances. And so Lori Lee and I are looking into that, and we'll be bringing those options, or if there are options, back to the board. So that's where we are with the ADU law. The version you have is pretty much the most up-to-date version, minus a couple of things where new amendments, edits are going to be made to the ADU law, which dealing with allowing for the standalone units, removing the 5-year residency requirement, and then adding a maximum square footage of 800 square feet.
So I can understand those 2 concerns. You know, the original language was 1/3, as I recall,
Yes.
which could be, 1,500 square feet or something, right? So I like the 800 square foot limit. And just to be clear, and the owner has to occupy one of the units. Is that one of the requirements going?
That's right. That is the requirement. That was something that went back and forth a number of times with the village board, because there was some concerns that if they're, you have a property owner and they have to leave for whatever circumstances, but they don't want to lose, they're going to need some sort of income to allow that other unit to be rented out. And so we are looking into options for that. I think the issue is it really does come down to interior changes that might need to be made, because it's no longer an accessory dwelling unit because the owner is no longer there. Then it becomes a 2-family home. And then you deal with firewall separations and those other issues.
Right. What keeps private equity from buying homes and just cutting them up, right? And using this
There's
law. We
also
want to
that
avoid that.
as well. So that is the one issue that hasn't been fully vetted and fully finalized at the village board.
They're not always connected, but sometimes they can be.
Sometimes, right, they won't be. Sometimes they'll be in standalone
Right,
units.
it could be the prototypical garage.
Right.
or Top floor of a garage being turned into.
It's only single
Classic
family.
granny.
It is
Right,
the
this is only in the single family zones.
Mostly because of the fact that in your multifamily zones, you can have more than one unit. And then and then you have a number of zones that allow for 2 families. So to avoid any confusion as to whether it's an accessory dwelling unit or 2-family home, we recommended at the get-go not to have it only in the single family districts to avoid any confusion.
Do you have to test drive this code through a different of scenarios to see where the bumps might be?
Yeah, I would think it'd be a different reaction neighborhood by neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't know, we'll find out.
It definitely would be.
No, but I mean, just do theoretical, what could go wrong with this part?
This
or-
code is also based on codes and.
There's a lot of experience. We are well behind.
Oh, okay.
This is, we are not pioneers here. This is.
I guess what I meant is that.
Right, Hastings has had.
Is the Dobbs Ferry code unusual enough that you have to
No.
do this? Okay.
No, it's not. And in the few places where our code is, actually Hastings is changing some things that that we're not putting in because they're too restrictive. For instance, Hastings had a rule that I think every 3 years or every 5 years, you had to go back
And renew.
through the process and renew.
Think it was
And they
3
found
years.
that that was pointless. And they've changed it now so that I think you have to go back just for the building department. You go back, and the building department does a kind of pro forma check to make sure that nobody's done anything that they're not supposed to have done. So there's nothing particularly ambitious about what we're doing. And I'll be surprised. I know people like to fantasize about what can happen to these single family neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, I think there's going to be a whole lot of nothing. I think that there's going to be very little of this that's actually going to happen. Hastings, because they were concerned about it originally, they put a limit on saying no more than 50 of these can be in the village at any one time. They've never gotten more than 30. So I just don't think, I think the various nightmare scenarios that people make up about single family neighborhoods becoming ghettoized because everybody's putting in units is just it's not gonna happen.
It'd be interesting to know though, where these are in Hastings.
I know exactly where
I
they
would like
are.
to see.
I can send everyone if you're interested.
That would be very helpful.
I actually did, and it wasn't actually for this. I'd love to say I did it all for you all. I did it for something else that was at Regional Plan Association. I got the list from Hastings. I went around and photographed every one of them. I have them in a PowerPoint.
I'd be
Which I
curious,
can
just
share-
what part
which I
of,
can
what
share with
part
you.
of Hastings? I mean, is it
Scattered.
Euclid? If you go to Euclid, are they all?
Scattered. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I have the map and I can show it to you, and it's not, because I sort of expected,
Perfect.
I kind of imagined, yeah, they should be scattered. I sort of expected them to be kind of clustered, and I don't know what my prejudice was about where I would find them, but they're all over.
Now, Rob, we mentioned before when we sat down about, would there be any type of design criteria for these things?
And the answer is this, that we are, as you know, as it is, there's a set of residential design. We're not going to do or we don't think we need to do a special set of design guidelines just for the ADUs. However, there is already the residential design guidelines, which probably could use a refreshing and a looking at. And what we'll probably do is have some supplemental things in the residential design guidelines that address the things that seem to be more particular to the accessory dwelling unit, like the location of the second entrance. A lot of design guidelines don't allow you to see both entrances, the other entrances. So we'll probably do a kind of a supplement to the existing residential design guidelines that address the handful of issues that seem to be particular to ADUs.
I mean, particularly in the case where it's a standalone unit that's not attached to the main house, that would be important.
Yeah, remember, this doesn't get, they're subject to all of the same coverage. It's not like you don't get to cover more of your site. I mean, you're subject to the same, all the underlying zoning pertains. So there are a whole lot of properties where the only way you'd be able to do this is by doing something in an existing structure or in your house, because you still have to meet the coverage requirements.
Okay.
And the setback and sky exposure, everything pertains.
Is there any handicap type regulations on these units? No.
I think not special ones. I mean, I don't know, I actually should know, I guess we should all know this. I don't know, what are the handicap requirements in our single family, just in our single family zones, the way it is now?
Well, it would be, it'd be based upon New York state building code.
Right.
But for ADUs, there's no specific, you don't have to build it for handicap requirements. You could if you wanted to.
Right.
But there's no ADA compliance issues.
Yeah. Who else in Westchester has done this?
There's a lot of communities that have.
Irvington, you said?
Well, our immediate neighbors have done it, but there's also.
Irvington has done it?
Irvington. Yeah. Hastings both have it. And then there are a bunch of others. I just can't remember. I can't remember the list.
The Westchester County, this is something that Westchester County Department of Planning has been advocating for. And they developed a model ordinance over the last year, and they've been going out to actually many communities to convince, the boards to adopt ADUs based upon the model ordinance. There's also a pending state legislation that would basically mandate that all communities allow for accessory dwelling units. There are some concerns with the state, the version of the state legislation, and there have been some additional discussions and amendments to that, where if a community does adopt ADUs prior to any sort of adoption of the state law, that they would automatically allow those communities to continue to enact the laws they have on the books. So there are some, and so there's still some movement in the state legislation dealing with ADUs, but the point is that it's a big push, both through the state and also
Because
within
what
Westchester County.
didn't Connecticut? I thought Connecticut passed some
I don't know, actually.
statewide, anyway.
So just have a question. So there's a house on our street that's got a large garage with a residential unit over top of it, and it's not like, it's for somebody to come visit, I don't think it's fully built out.
Well, if it
But it's
has,
right on the property line.
although if it has a kitchen and
Bathroom, it's
whatever they
dwelling
call
unit.
it, if it's a compliant unit, it's an illegal ADU.
I don't know how far I got, but I know that there's space up there for, guests to stay, My brother's got one of those over his garage too. He was in another town, but my point is it's right on the property line. So you're saying that wouldn't be able to be authorized as an EDU because it doesn't conform with setbacks?
That's a good question.
Would get a variance for that?
I guess you'd have to get a.
You'd have to go,
variance.
it would be like the regular
You'd have-
building.
Yeah, you'd
codes.
have
They
to
gotta
say there's an
follow the
existing
same.
non-conforming structure
Right.
that I want to do this in.
This would be pretty innocuous, as far as
No, I
I'm
know.
concerned.
No, I know.
But I just
It's
was
a good
interested
question.
in gaming it out, yeah.
It's a good question. It also raises
Rob, that study in Hastings, did they look at who was occupying the ADUs at all? Like, is it like family members or elder or kids?
I
or-
don't, I don't remember. I feel like I asked that question, but I don't remember the answer.
Yeah.
But I know who to ask. I've been in.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, it's a good.
I'd like to see your PowerPoint if you.
Yeah,
willing to
yeah,
share
Me
it.
too.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for doing it. Well.
Rob, you might want to send that to the board as well, to the Board of Trustees as well.
So I guess the real purpose of, and also, by the way, I think it's very unlikely that you're going to see altogether new ADUs constructed as separate structures, because to build an 800 square foot, the cost of.
It's not
the
very
service-
efficient.
Yeah, I know, I think of in Hastings, I think I found one example of a purpose-built ADU.
It's probably more like a garage. that happens
Everything
to
else
have
were
it.
garages that get converted, or the cost of construction is so high.
Yeah, there was-
So I don't think you're gonna
That
see
was
these
built.
things popping up all over our.
Some of our one-family zones won't even allow it really with the coverage. Most of them
Yeah, they might
maxed out.
exceed the coverage now.
Right.
And there is a maximum of 50 permits, so it's not just completely open-ended. Of course, the village board can always amend that if they feel that, after 50 is, permits have been given out, that they want to increase the amounts of ADUs within the village, but
Is there, that's going to be an art in this,
yes, it was there from the beginning.
was it really?
Mhm.
I thought that was just recently. I would be opposed to that, but if it gives people comfort. And we'll never hit that number, but if it gives people comfort, I suppose. Donna, do you remember that being discussed?
Yeah, I know that it is still in there, because I saw it. Again, as you said, Irvington hasn't reached their 50. Hastings hasn't reached their 50. Chances are we're not going to reach it. And if it's going to make people feel better, we can keep it. And if we find that there is a large call for ADUs, and we hit the 50, as Valerie said, it's easy enough to amend something like that in a law. But it's been in there all along.
Okay.
So I don't know that there's any action, right, to be taken. It's just, we're taking the temperature of the planning board to make sure that there wasn't somebody who was vociferously against it or really felt like they wanted some provision of the proposed code changed so that we can move quickly at the Board of Trustees.
And
So-
there will be a public hearing on this. So
That's right,
the
that's
planning
what's
board does have any comments that they want to give to the Board of Trustees on this. It should be done by then, either in writing or have somebody come to the meeting. You could certainly, if you have any issues or questions, that can be addressed to the board at the public hearing or before, if you want.
That's true.
Valerie, this isn't the zoning code, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that automatically be referred to the planning board?
So it's interesting that you said that. Lori Lee and I were looking at the zoning code.
Yeah.
Technically, there's not a requirement,
No,
but I
no.
think the village board typically does.
Yeah.
So this is
Because they
like,
know we have to implement it.
yeah,
so-
I mean, we looked at that because I said, we went back and forth. I'm like, isn't there a requirement? But we looked and
Is there another, is that typical in other municipalities?
typically, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, but in terms of, I think normal procedure has been that it does get referred to the planning board. So I would also suggest that once we have a final version that's going to go for public hearing, we'll send it to the planning board. And then again, if there's any other concerns or comments, we can always bring it back to the village board.
Yeah, absolutely.
There'll be definitely plenty of time for that.
I think the changes discussed are really good and they make me a lot more comfortable. So
Yeah.
thank you, whoever was just behind that.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Good. That said, I move we adjourn.
Favor.
Aye.